Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you so
Ra-
much for giving me.
Rajiv, Rajiv, over to you. You've been associated with journalism and civil society organizations for a long time. What, according to you, are the reasons that enterprises, workers, and government operate through the lens of ad hocism rather than long-term vision, and including distrust? I think a very important point which was made. We all know the kind of distrust which exists, and that is a legacy from the British Raj also. And in fact, nobody mentioned this, but many of the old laws and codes drafted during the British times were particularly onerous. And I mean, let's take the example of Article 377. That finally got shot down by the Supreme Court, in spite of the fact that it went up and down, etc., etc. That is a classic case of what the British did when they did in India, but the same thing they did not apply within the United Kingdom also. So you can imagine there are double standards that we had to face, but there it did affect the ease of living of those who believe in a different form of relationships. Not that not that it is widely popular, yet there is a substantial vocal minority who believe in that. But that said, Rajiv, uh, also, what should be the modus operandi of the communication between government and citizens to address the unease of living
Uh,
as
uh,
a system, as a platform, as a there is as Rajin said, I mean ministers and everybody likes the citizens to come up to them and हमारी वो बर्खास्त देते हैं फरमाइश देते हैं कि हमारे ये समस्या है वो समस्या and so on. But what could be the best way? I mean there is a good redressal system in place in the government. There's no doubt about that. But does it really help? Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Pradeep ji. Very good morning to all my fellow panelists. I think, well, I'd like to thank you for inviting me in the first place. I think one of the reasons for ad hoc approach in general is lack of awareness. That's why the problems start building up actually about regulations, rights, entitlements amongst masses as well as personnel of regulatory agencies. I'm not talking about the senior levels, Banawat sir, I'm not talking about Banawat sir level. I'm talking about middle level and the gatekeepers at the lower level where people have a regular interaction. So there's lack of awareness essentially. Of course, we can also say that there will be motives and other things, but essentially it's lack of awareness that's bothering people. It's about the quality of regulations. What Sir just said that about drafting of laws, the cumbersome laws, the long-winded sentences. We don't have simplification of laws at all. And then, of course, poor implementation and lack of capacity building regulatory personnel also. Because once they enter a job, they leave as good as they had entered 30 years back or 20 years. So there's no training, capacity building, or getting them on par with what is happening if any changes have taken place. Then, of course, difficulties faced by citizens in accessing redressal.
Or even beating out.
Right. And difficulties faced by citizens in accessing redressal. And those very few cases where they do get redressal, those success stories never get told actually, which would inspire faith and show people that this is the way to go about it. This is the SOP to access redressal. So those stories never get told actually. So those would be essentially the larger issues which are facing across the board. But when it comes to SMEs, I think Anil Bhardwaj gave figures. So I wouldn't say that, but you see, enterprises are generally, of course, bothered by lack of capital, inability to attract talent, and also they don't have technology access, they don't have digital knowledge, technical know-how. There are lots of challenges they're facing, despite that they're doing so well. So which again says the same thing, that if you just remove government interference, let them be on their own in a default position, they would do much better. So that goes without saying. But having said that, in this scenario, the short-term approach is a matter of compulsion for them than a matter of choice. Because when they're in this kind of an ecosystem, which is inbuilt with uncertainties, with roadblocks, so short-term approach becomes very viable for them. It also helps them in risk redressal also, because risk management is easier in short-term than in long-term kind of a situation. So that way they're better placed there. Similarly, workers, I mean, despite the laws and regulations being there, but workers are not able to access them because of the large percentage of informal sector workers. So there is also oversupply of cheap labor. There's connivance with implementing agencies by the employers themselves, And the disproportionate number of migrants is complicating the situation because they're more vulnerable, and those vulnerabilities are very easily exploited by employers. Jobs insecurity is their biggest challenge. All these factors do add to their ad hoc behavior because they're looking at very short-term kind of things, and they're looking at today, not tomorrow. Actually, they don't have that kind of a luxury of looking at tomorrow at all. And of course, the lesson said about government officials, Manav sir just summed it up very well. They don't have junior officers don't have a need for long-term vision at all. Their approach is short-term, linked to their posting, tenure, and interest. So ad hocism, in short, is built into the system. So it does call for structural changes in regulation and implementation, that goes without saying. Coming back to this, all is compounded by the fact by the nature of the communication between the government and the citizens. There has been traditionally only top-down communication from the government to citizens. Though this government has been focusing on also bottom-up communication using social media. But what happens with that communication, we don't know really actually. They're sourcing lots of feedback, lots of comments from people across the board on social media. But what is happening with that, we have no clue about that. So those stories need to be told that, okay, if these things have been addressed, what has happened, what has been the impact, that will inspire more people to come back with feedback. Because if people don't see anything happening after their feedback, it really pains them, because there's a loss of, there's an opportunity cost to them to even indulge in sending feedback actually. If there's a Mann Ki Baat and they send a feedback about the exams, so it does bother them if there's not a response to that kind of a thing. So those kind of things need to be addressed. And also the focus, there's very disproportionate focus on digital communication. Digital communication is an add-on kind of a thing in our scenario. But for the underprivileged people, even to use digital communication is a big challenge. So I'm just finishing it off. So and the bigger problem here arises that we don't have a media and communication policy. We need a national media and communication policy, which sets up SOPs, which sets up processes at the central level, at state level, and district level. I mean, when we have around more than 700 districts, 28 states, 8 union territories, 20,000 languages and dialects in the country, we just need some bit of SOPs, a policy which is uniform, that helps government to respond quickly. So that's a need of the day. And with the fake news playing the role it's playing today, the policy is critically going to be an enabling environment. So I'll just close it because I'm simply running time, out of time. The media policy may not solve our problem, but to help us in streamlining the feedback mechanism with citizens and also getting back to them with an improved kind of policy framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rajiv, for some excellent suggestions as well.